20 minutes more or less of working together. As we all know, we have now a panel. It is a very short panel. We have 3 representatives of very important organizations. So we have the point of view of a national qualifications authority. We will have the point of view of Business Africa, and we will have also the point of view of workers, let's say, the Organization of African Trade Union Unity. The panel is just 15 minutes, so we have more or less 5-6 minutes per panelist. And I'd like to ask then first Mrs. Jacqueline Mugo from Business Africa. And here we have all the questions that we had proposed. So our panelists can choose to reply to one of them or a combination and, let's say, do a merged response to these various issues. Let us immediately then move. Jacqueline, thank you very much for being here with us. We know how busy you are. And you also know how important it is to have Business Africa participating, contributing, inspiring the work of ACQF. Jacqueline, I just wanted to acknowledge and confirm that you are here. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm here representing Mrs. Jacqueline. She had to step into another meeting, but I'm here to represent Business Africa.
Thank you.
My name is Grace Kaume.
Thank you very much, Grace. Excellent. Grace, we have these 3 questions, and I'm sure you have discussed well with Jacqueline. So the socioeconomic recovery from the pandemic will require massive retraining, upskilling, requalification of the active population. And this is, of course, very important and concerning for Business Africa and its constituency. Which are the new skills you consider fundamental for a successful transition? And these transitions, various digital, green, automation, social also, citizenship, other skills. So this is one of the questions. Then the other one is, how should these new emerging skills be developed and supported by the qualification system and framework? And in your view, how should ACQF support this transformation? So this is a set of questions, and your reply can address them the way you consider really fit for purpose for business from the point of view of Business Africa. And thank you already, Grace. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'll pick it up from there. Apologies from Mrs. Jacqueline. She had to step into another meeting urgently. And yes, from Business Africa, it's true that there is a shift in terms of the skills that are required at the workplace really today. But just to mention, this change has not come today. Prior to the pandemic, there were already changes that we're experiencing. And these were really highly driven by things like, globalization, changes in technology, demographic changes, among others. So currently we have some new skills that are required at the workplace. We have some skills that have been declared redundant or are being declared redundant with time, and others relevant, yes, but insufficient as we move on. And we've seen that even from surveys that have been done. So in terms of the skills that are required really for the successful transition, I would like to note that as Business Africa, and even by extension, Federation of Kenya Employers, there are quite a number of research studies that we have done during the pandemic period, and basically checking then on the skills that are required and what employers are looking for and will be hiring for moving forward. I must say I was excited listening to the presentation that just ended, because some of those actually reflected in some of the surveys that we did. And the top 10 that we picked during the pandemic period, one as recent as a survey that we did in June of this year, indicated that one, employers are looking for digital skills as a top skill, and that's what they will be looking for moving forward. You have to have the required digital skills moving forward. Creativity and innovation came second in our report. Communication was noted as really key as the number 3. Teamwork and collaboration, we put them together, came up as the next. Then emotional resilience, and I saw resilience in the previous one, the presentation that has just been made. That was noted really as a critical skill that employers will be looking for. Problem solving, technical skills, and organizational skills in that order. So we see really our top 3 were digital skills, creativity, innovation, and communication skills. What we noted is that there were a mix then of some technical skills, but also soft skills. But the soft skills took a bigger chunk of what employers said they will be looking for. And when we looked at other surveys, then they highlighted things like leadership, flexibility, adaptability, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, among others. But the ones that I've highlighted are the ones that our surveys brought out. In the next question, then you asked us to look at how these emerging skills should be developed and how they should be supported by qualification frameworks or systems. What we'd like to note is that I think the way forward is really around collaboration. That is what we are underpinning. And we're looking at collaboration between employers, between employees, between governments, between institutions, in that there is no one institution that will be able to do it alone. These institutions have to work collaboratively because the employers know the needs and the gaps that are in the market and that they're looking for in the labor market. But then we need to develop the employees that we have. It doesn't mean that we should throw them out. And that's why the issue of reskilling and upskilling comes in. So we must work together. The institutions, as they're developing these curriculums, they have to take into account the inputs from the employers in terms of really what the needs of the labor market are. So our biggest recommendation then really on how to work to really address these issues is on the issue of collaboration and partnerships with the relevant key stakeholders, including employers and other sector, labor sector players. Then, of course, the issue of taking up multiple approaches is one that we recommend. There will be no one size that fits all because these skills cannot all be developed in a classroom. Some of them can only be developed through an experiential manner, through coaching, through mentoring, through exposures, through allowing people to be part of project teams. So really a multiple approach to development of skills, look at what works for what type of skills, where possible employers can have, yes, specific initiatives to develop specific skills, but they have to approach it from a very multiple approach perspective, including looking at blended, what in person, what face-to-face, what online, what hybrid works in that case. And how qualification systems and frameworks can support this then is really to ensure that there is that flexibility that is provided for, because employers have a business to keep businesses ongoing and productive. So as people are being allowed to go to work, we must be sure that work is happening at the workplaces. So really, they have to promote that flexibility. Of course, we want people to grow and progress in their careers, and not just in one career, but even across careers, really. COVID has taught us that people who are in certain careers during that time had to shift to others. So then how do we ensure that then there's that cross-functional growth horizontally and vertically? And that's what we are hoping qualification frameworks will do, promote lifelong learning, which has been extensively talked about here, in that even when people retire, even when people get out of employment, they will still have the skills to take them forward to the next level. I'll take on the last question there, which is asking us then to address, in our view, how NQF can support this transformation. First is really to help the various countries to ensure that there is, some standardization, harmonization of qualifications and qualification frameworks at a country level. Some countries are very advanced, some are not all, they're not all at the same level. I'm glad I've seen the DG of KNQA, because Kenya is one of those countries that already has a framework, a Kenya National Qualifications Framework that is in place. So first, if all countries can be at that level, that would be a good place to start. Second is then standardization and harmonization at an Africa level. So can I be able to move to a different African country and be able to get employment and be able to get opportunities without struggling in terms of where my qualifications fit in? We are seeing that as an opportunity to help Africa to address things like challenges in terms of surpluses or shortages of labor. We know some countries have excess labor supply in certain categories, but others have shortages in others. So that really will go a long way to ensure that there is that mobility of labor. We are looking at really that export of South to South migration as we talk about it today. Then we're looking at really ACF, QF then supporting implementation of the same. Frameworks cannot be anything without implementation. They will just remain that, a document that is on the shelves and no one is using. So how do we then make them a reality? That's really a key discussion that we need to hold. Once we have all these documents, so what? How do we make them a reality? Who do we need to bring on the table? Who do we need to engage to make sure that they are adequately implemented? And lastly, but not least, is then to ensure that all key stakeholders are involved, are engaged in all these discussions, from the frameworks development, conceptualization, documentation, implementation, giving of feedback, monitoring and evaluation of how they are being implemented. Really just to note that the one player that cannot be left out is the players within the labor sector. We're talking about employers. They know what the challenges are, what you've been struggling with, issues of skills mismatch that have been a big issue. Even some surveys that we've conducted here have shown jobs and skills mismatch over time. And so this is the only way to address if we ensure that all key stakeholders are on board. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Grace. This was absolutely very comprehensive, evidence-based also. Thank you for using also the results of the surveys, studies done by Business Africa. And thank you very much for all these recommendations towards the CQF. It is really very timely because the process is now intensifying development of the policy and technical documents of the CQF. So thank you very much for being here today, and regards, of course, to Jacqueline. And we are very, very pleased, privileged for having you with this interaction. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now we move to another fundamental, of course, player in the ecosystem and panorama of work, trade unions. So thank you very much, Mr. Udeh Valentine, Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of African Trade Union Unity. Valentine has been a very assiduous participant of most of or almost all ACQF activities, webinars. He has also participated in the inaugural workshop in September 2019 in Addis. We have then these questions for you, and Valentine, please reply either relevant from the point of view of the African unity. So very quickly, are lifelong learning systems, I think this is a perspective of the interest for the trade unions, are lifelong learning systems ready to provide the new skills and learning opportunities workers need in the recovery, the post-COVID-19 recovery, and in this era of transformation? What are the most important gaps of lifelong learning systems and what should be done to solve them as a high priority? Then another question is, can you share maybe some cases of good practice, and could you mention them in respect exactly to better lifelong learning? And finally, again, the same question, in your view, How should the ACQF support this needed transformation and improvement of lifelong learning in Africa going forward? Thank you very much, Valentine. The floor is yours. Thank you. Maybe you are muted. We don't hear you. Maybe you are muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, very well. Thank you.
And on behalf of the Executive Committee, the Secretary General of Organization of African Trade and Unity, Brother Risky Muzid, and millions of workers, I want to express our appreciation to the African Union and the organizers of the peer learning under the ACQF platform for giving us the opportunity to be part of this webinar. So far, the program has been quite enriching with so many experiences shared from national, regional, and global perspective. Lifelong learning is continuous and dynamic and has a long impact towards socio-economic development of society. It is worthwhile noting that in our time, this 21st century, technological changes and globalization, along with demographic and climate change, are transforming the world, opening new opportunities. However, this also poses some challenges to people in obtaining access to decent work and challenges for enterprises in adapting sustainably. Also, the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic in the beginning of 2020 has definitely caused the most serious disruption to the world of work in modern times and accelerating the transformation that have evolved over years and aggravated existing inequality. Furthermore, in most countries, irrespective of their stage of development, the ongoing social and economic transformation continue to raise this key question about the future of work. What will be the jobs of the future and what skills will they demand? It is an undeniable fact that today in the world of work, skills mismatch are growing challenges in today's labor markets, with many consequences for workers, businesses, and the future of work. This situation therefore demands for a reinvigorated momentum for investing in people's capacities that reflect a heightened sense of urgency and shared responsibility, especially in the post-pandemic recovery process, which then calls for placing greater priority on skills development and empowering people from a lifelong learning perspective, scaling, reskilling, and upskilling throughout all stages of life for a precondition and an accelerator for people to access decent work opportunities and enable smooth transition into labor markets and within labor markets. Skills development and lifelong learning are fundamental enablers of decent work, productivity, and sustainability that can raise the value and output of labor, empower the lives of workers and enrich societies. For individuals, they provide the key to pursue their interests and aspirations and access the labor market, escape from poverty and social exclusion, and adapt to the changing world of work. Skill development policies, systems, and resources in many countries need to be urgently developed and strengthened to meet the current and future challenges. This can be achieved through social dialogue, which holds the key to shaping a training system and improving the links between education and training and the world of work to ensure benefits of structural change and shared structural change are shared fairly. The outbreak of COVID-19 has added new challenges to education and training development systems. Apart from posing a major health threat to billions of people, it has also changed the way people work, communicate, teach, and learn. Businesses across a range of economic sectors, especially small enterprises, have faced catastrophic losses that threaten their operations and solvency. According to the International Labour Organization ILO report, full or partial lockdown measures affected almost 2.7 billion workers, about 81% of the workers as of early 2021, making them vulnerable to income loss and layoffs. Businesses have had to adapt to remote working or find solutions to compensate closures, while workers who lost jobs in certain sectors have had to find alternative employment. Women who bore the brunt of unpaid care work have lost jobs at higher rates than men, reversing recent gender equality gains. In the education and training sector as well, teachers and trainers have faced unique challenges as schools and technical and training institutions have been
We have
as a whole. As a whole, on skills policies and system reforms, skills anticipation, skills for social inclusion, recognition of prior learning, and work-based learning, among others. Also is investing in skills and reshaping education and training, which includes investing in the capacity of teachers and trainers by leveraging digital technologies and innovative methods while supporting the rise and improved working conditions of teachers and trainers, are seen as a critical element of recovery measures across the world.
Thank you.
For developing countries, the relevance of lifelong education is indeed an extremely important issue. This is the national or continental to have a population that is as highly educated and knowledgeable as possible, and developing a population which has the capacity and the will to adapt to global change trends. What then needs to be done is for raising a threshold of skills, as well as more frequent changes in the nature of skills required, especially in the area of advancement in information communication technologies, ICTs. It's also important to note that lifelong learning core values of learning provide one with the ability of exploring and serving coupled with benefits for the mind, body, and spirit, and this development makes it an incredible, powerful tool for personal transformation and enhancement. Lifelong learning plays a major role in development. It is now widely admitted that growth will not reduce poverty unless poor people, especially in general, are able to actively participate in it. Education provides one with the knowledge and information, which in turn brings about desirable changes in the way one thinks, feels, and acts. It contributes very effectively to the realization of one's potential. Therefore, education is considered as a social instrument that largely helps in developing human resources and for human capital formation. The second question is, what are the most important gaps of lifelong systems, and what should be done to solve them with the needed priority? Although education and training may have economic benefits for individuals, it is recognized that economic incentives alone are not necessarily sufficient to motivate people to engage in education and training. A range of motivational barriers needs to be identified and addressed in order for some people to participate in education and training. While some of the challenges are economic and can be overcome with financial assistance, many people are deterred from engaging in education and training by social and personal factors. Challenges such as lack of motivation, time, and inadequate resources can interfere with an individual's success as an independent adult learner. This is according to Odura Mensah and Bini in 2014. Some other problems, such as lack of awareness of knowledge deficit, personal reluctance to change, ambivalence, and group mentality, can also be significant challenges to positive educational changes as cited in Collins 2018. The delay in the supply of syllabus and textbooks for smooth takeoff of lifelong learning program and inadequate preparation and training of teachers to implement the educational reform could also be some of the hurdles. Inadequate classrooms and lack of both science and state computer laboratories in some deprived schools or communities could be some of the barriers to the smooth path to a learning and knowledge practice. To help solve these challenges or gaps that we have pointed at above, one is that we provide the needed infrastructure and also train the human resource to handle the lifelong learning program and create more awareness for people to adhere or appreciate the benefits of lifelong learning. It's also to develop employable skills, which must be taught, and efforts must also be made for learners to develop a positive attitude, commitment, enjoyment, and motivation towards learning. Because no one will engage in processes during their life for goals and objectives that they do not like. Also is to promote lifelong learning as a continuous, collaborative, self-directed, active, broad in domain, everlasting, and fulfilling, and applicable to one's profession as well as all aspects of one's life, since this has emerged as a major global educational challenge, and it is resolving in Africa. Also, empower institutions and organizers, both governmental and private, because it will help to impact positively on national development. Then the other question is any case of good practice that could be mentioned in respect of better life learning, which are people or worker-centered. A classic example is the International Labour Organization Labour Conference 109 section 2021, which has a full report on shaping skills and lifelong learning for the future, which is this is an approach by the ILO tailored towards the betterment of workers. And again, it's a question, in my view, how should AU, African Continental Qualification Framework, support this needed transformation of lifelong learning? AU Continental Qualification Framework support the transformation of lifelong learning by one, for funding, designing policy framework for the continent by engaging all stakeholders, and also ensuring rapid infrastructure development, providing expertise for each constituents, and piloting the framework and later replicating it for the rest of the continent, which is already happening now, and modeling it on the ILO's Decent Work Country Program or the African Peer Review Mechanism approach, and also putting in place monitoring and evaluation mechanism. In conclusion, because that when lifelong learning is appropriately approached, it will result in economic growth, reduction of poverty, consolidation of democracy, and in harnessing of the opportunities provided by globalization, not only in African countries, but the world at large. Furthermore, lifelong learning empowers individuals because it opens avenues of communication that would otherwise be closed, personal choice and control over one's environment. It is also an appropriate strategy for the acquisition of many skills. It is also found as key to which individuals can unlock the full range of their talent. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the view of the Organization of African Trade Unions.
Thank you very much, Valentine, and Organization of African Trade Unions Unity for this statement, for all the proposals and elaboration on the importance of lifelong learning and how to address the needs, the vast needs, but also the the way forward also in relationship with collaboration with the ACQF. Thank you very much. And now we will have the pleasure to have with us Dr. Mukhwana. Dr. Mukhwana is the Chief Executive Officer of Kenya National Qualifications Authority. And he has now listened and, let's say, taken stock of all the proposals coming from employers from one side, workers, trade unions from the other side. And he has also 3 questions. Please, Dr. Mukhwana, we would like then to ask you to share with us your views on what is driving change in learning and qualifications from your perspective of National Qualifications Authority, and how to keep pace and keep this transformation in a way somehow coherent. And what should be the role of national qualifications frameworks in this context of transformation and very fast change? And finally, how can actually the national qualifications frameworks benefit from this and at the same time support change? Dr. Mukhwana, we are then very pleased to listen to your statement, to your suggestions about these various issues.
Thank you very much, Eduarda, and my colleagues Udeh and Grace on behalf of Jacqueline. I am happy addressing you from Nairobi, courtesy of this new way of doing business. And I think therein lies the solution to some of the questions that we have. As I can see, Udeh has widely talked about the issue of the COVID pandemic, and Chris, of course, did indicate the fact that we need to be living in a changing environment. So what I would like to say is, if we step back a little bit, 2 years ago, this meeting, we will be sitting in a conference in Johannesburg or somewhere in Abuja, and we will all be making very nice presentations and meeting and talking and exchanging not just smiles, but also information. Learning, our classrooms were full and very lively discussions, teachers giving students takeaway examinations and so on. Today, that world has changed. So I would say that in summary, I would like to say that because of the COVID pandemic, and also the technology is changing. So even before the COVID came, there was a lot of change on the technology side. We've had a lot of issues of robotics, artificial intelligence, and the lifestyles of people is also changing. So you can see that culturally, people are having they want to multitask, they want to do many things. Sitting in a classroom has been already a problem, even without the pandemic. So I would say that those 3 drivers, the pandemic, the technology, and our changing lifestyles, have contributed immensely to the way we are changing, we are seeing teaching and learning. And so we can no longer really fill up a classroom, we can no longer fill up a conference room. And because of this, the tools and methods of learning and teaching are also changing. And from a perspective of national qualification authorities, where we are looking at quality, because Chris was talking about, we want a qualification that is the same standard, that can migrate from one country to another, and we should all be able to say this qualification, we know it. But now the challenge is, if this qualification is being delivered in a very diverse way. Previously, qualifications were delivered in a uniform way. We all sat in a classroom, practical class, field visit. Now we are all at different levels. Some people have internet, some people don't have it. Some people have technology to teach online, some people don't have it. And so the question from a qualification point of view is, as Africa, we would like a qualification that is the same or that looks the same. And when you cross the borders, it remains the same, or it is equivalent to the one that is being offered there. And so because many of us and different countries have invested differently in this technology and the way we are migrating, we are all migrating. If I look at the the envelope migration from Tanzania, what we call the great migration, not all the envelopes are migrating at the same speed. So some are ahead of others. And so the problem with that is then the question to ask is, will then the qualifications that we have in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, in Malawi, will they be the same? It's because we all have different resources. And so that is a question. So as we move to the new normal, different countries have different capacities to migrate and to adopt to this new change. And therefore that affects the quality and the comparability of those qualifications, and even the transparency with which we want to give them. And so because national qualifications set national standards for qualifications, we are concerned that we would like, as we change the methods of learning and the methods of teaching, that these qualifications can still remain nearly the same and comparable and of the same quality. The other issue that I want to say is that beyond this change of technology, there has to be a change of the mindset. Because I talk to universities and I talk to TVET trainers, and I meet a lot of trainers and I meet a lot of learners that have not quite embraced this new way of doing business. So they still think that we are learning online for a short while, as long as Corona is here, and then we'll go back to our business as usual. I don't think that we will. So part of the challenge that we have, members, is that as we invest in technology, and as we invest in new ways of teaching and learning, we must also invest in changing the mindset of both the learners and the teachers, the parents, even the employers, because there are some employers, and I'm happy that Chris is here. There are employers that think that online acquired qualifications are inferior to those that are done in a class. So we will need a massive investment in how people take in these changes, so that both at the teacher level, at the learners level, at the parents level, at the employers level, and the society in general, and so on. And because we all need new skills, as Grace has said, and Udeh has said, so that we can produce more. So if we think about it, we all have the same goals. We need new skills. We need to take on new roles because of the pandemic and other changing circumstances. We need to work in different ways and still produce the same results. And so technology then comes in, but then, as I've said, the way we perform, you can have new technology, but are we performing at 10%, 20%? Is it 100%? How do we move this forward, especially using issues of access to internet and also artificial intelligence? And so we have a number of people that have really, and so there is need as we move forward to keep monitoring and evaluating how we are adapting as a continent. As we look at maybe one of the things that we need to look at within the framework of NQF is how do we monitor and evaluate adoption of new technology and the impact of this on the quality of our qualifications and the comparability of our qualifications, so that we, as much as we assume that we are all adapting to this new technology, we have different capacities. So monitoring and evaluation is important. And so as I conclude, I want to say that the learning is now being achieved through many modes of learning and many modes of teaching. Lucky qualification frameworks provide the standard. It's like we have the compass, the ruler, that is enabling us to measure each of these qualifications using learning outcomes. Through label descriptors, we are able to provide a standard way of measuring the outcomes of our learning. And so we are concerned that what we are describing in label descriptors can be achieved regardless of which mode of learning and which mode of teaching, so that our qualifications can be comparable, they can be transparent, and they can also serve the changing needs of our employers and industry. I thank you, members.
Thank you. Asante sana, Dr. Mukhwana, for, as always, your very clear, forward-looking, and at the same time realistic as proposals and thinking. So that's always a characteristic we notice in your way.